welcome everybody. I have the pleasure of introducing a man who honestly needs no introduction, at least in this group. Baron is what we consider him one of our tribe. So, but I am going to go ahead and introduce him for people who don't know who he is. Baron is the LA Times and IMBA bestselling author of the Hard Boiled Mike Travis series, which includes Roadhouse Blues, Ruby Tuesday, Angel Falls, and Hard Latitudes, which is a book that has one of the most stunning covers I've ever seen. He's also the author of the award-winning Ty Dawson series, California Purple's Fistful of Rain, as well as the critically acclaimed standalone Rain Dogs, which also have wonderful covers. Baron is a 5-time winner of the Silver Falchion Award and the winner of the 2018 Killer Nashville Reader's Choice Award, as well as the 2019's Best Book of the Year for Fistful of Rain. But before I turn it over to Baron, Larry has crafted a small tribute to Baron that we'd like to share with you this morning. Larry?
Thank you, Maddie. Out in the West, with a star on his vest, rides a lawman, Baron Bircher. Many bold renegades with guns and with blades failed against Baron Bircher. The songstress with a tune, Lady Janice from a saloon, won the heart of Baron Bircher. In all of his books, music lyrics expose crooks, from Roadhouse Blues to Hard Latitudes. Mike Travis fights crime in the 1970s. There are no prosperous or successful felonies. Lawman Bircher has changed the story. From under the brim of a rancher's hat, flowing hair frames the face of a writer that today brings mystery and mayhem. Baron Bircher.
Well, Larry, I take umbrage to all of it. In the spirit of conflict, by God, I won't have it. Okay, just kidding. I thought that was awesome. Thank you very much. That is really great fun. I want a copy of that.
Okay.
Thank you. Wow. I love these SCWA events. They are always so much fun. It's so great to see familiar faces and friends, and especially now in this all this crazy, everybody's at home doing Zoom stuff. So thank you all for being here on a beautiful Saturday to talk about conflict of all things. And it's interesting because when Maddie suggested the topic here, I thought, well, this will be an interesting thing to give some thought to, because as it turns out, I realized I really didn't give a lot of thought to it in the formative stages or in the architectural stages of the pre-writing process, and was really more of an instinctive deal as I went along. So I thought about, what is it, and when do you deploy the asset in order to work as in our writing and in order to have it be a useful tool? So I guess I started with the notion of, what kinds of conflicts are there that we have to work with? And we've got interpersonal conflicts, of course. We've got internal conflicts, moral dilemmas, things from our past. We have environmental conflicts, either cultural or natural, like the weather. We've got man-made conflicts, terroristic things like bombs and bad behavior. We've got accidental things like, accidents, car accidents and things that can waylay a character. And hundreds more variations on those themes. But with all of those, they all serve a different purpose. And I got to thinking about, why do we use it? Apart from the big central conflict that most of us deal with in terms of formulating our A story in our narrative, there's usually something left undone, something that needs doing, something that needs fixing or solving, which in itself is an inherent conflict. But the real purposes of them, of using those things is, and I'll use a negative example first. we've all read books where there is an obvious lull in the narrative, and it appears that the author has reached some sort of cul-de-sac in their own story. And so what do? And you blow something up, or somebody throws a punch, or something happens out of the blue, and it sort of serves as that shiny object that gives the writer a way out of the corner he's written himself in. But to me, when one finds oneself doing that, it's really the waste of a great opportunity. Not the least of which is fix the cul-de-sac. That in itself is a problem. But the purpose of the conflict, any conflict, should be revelatory. It's meant to reveal something about your characters, all of them. And I think we can all agree that the books that we recommend to our friends, the ones that we remember best and love the most, are the ones where the characters are so fleshed out that they stick with you. You can still name their names and talk about their attributes years after you've read the book. And it doesn't have to be one of those big doorstop kind of books. It doesn't have to be Lonesome Dove. There are plenty of examples of things that are just so well drawn that they're memorable and stick with you forever. But it's characters that do that. It's not necessarily the story. In fact, for me, it's rarely the story that makes me want to recommend a book. It's most often just, you got to know these people. So when you think about that, the point of using conflict is the old show not tell kind of adage, right? And we are probably sick to death of hearing about it, but it's so true, and it's such a great opportunity to expose the character for how they respond, because it's not really the conflict that's important, it's the response. And there's plenty of times that we've also seen where instead of taking the time of having a set piece where you have a scene where you can expose characters for who they are at their core through the way that they behave, instead we want to explain it. We want to take a shortcut, and you give 2 paragraphs of all kinds of stuff about who this person is and why they are the way they are and all their backstory, when in fact you can do that with a great deal more brevity and a great deal more authority when you take the time to set up an expository scene where there is a conflict and a reaction, not necessarily a resolution. It doesn't have to resolve. It just needs to have a reaction and a response. There is no better way to expose the inner motivations of a character than exposing him to some kind of conflict. So it leads you then to recognize that those responses are what can reveal a villain as easily as it can a hero. And situational conflicts, like the scenes that I was just talking about that you can set up, are also great vehicles for foreshadowing. So when you have in the case of a hero, this is I like to take the time, and here again, this is a personal preference, and we are not all writing the same kinds of books, obviously, but my personal preference is to see if I can come up with a little set piece early in the story that reveals a character's Achilles heel, maybe a phobia, maybe a character flaw. It could be the opposite of that. It could be their propensity to act first towards heroism. Let's use that proverbial car accident that we were talking about. There are some people that see it, say, oh my God, and drive away. And that tells the reader something. There are some characters that might immediately jump out and rush to the aid of whatever's going on. And that tells us something. Those kinds of foreshadowings are very effective when later, towards the end of Act 2, when you have a similar, though larger, conflict or emergency come about. And we know as readers, because we've already been told, that, here is either a chance for the character's redemption, or here's a chance that because of the character's flaw, a problem persists. Does that make sense? So conflict can be used in a lot of really fun kinds of ways. And I got to thinking about, beyond what we just said, you know, so when do you deploy it? You know, there's that saying about, you know, conflict on every page. Well, that's, you know, that's obviously an overstatement to make a point, but there kind of is conflict on every page if we have crafted our story, our narrative from the get-go, and if we know our characters intimately well. You can reveal those people very, very well from the very outset. And I like to start with conflict in the setting itself. What's going on in the town that this is taking place? I'll just use a town, but in any environment it works. In the town where it works, where your story is set, what's going on there? Do people get along? Was there a recent tragedy that binds people together, or has separated into factions? Is there struggle? Is there strife? Do people say hi to each other on the sidewalk? What's going on there? And if we create a little bit of conflict in the setting, you always have that to lean on as you go along. And it will help drive the way your characters interact with one another, especially the tertiary characters. Those are the ones that really illustrate how the town operates, how the setting operates, and what kind of world your characters live in. And I love to do that because it kind of creates for me, it's a reminder and kind of sonic wallpaper as to where I am. What room am I in when I'm writing this story? So use it at the very beginning, and then recall it. Obviously, I need to take notes on all of this stuff as I go along, because I don't want to forget the little breadcrumbs I leave for myself. So anyway, start from the outset, and then move it into your dialogue, and make sure that it gets into the dialogue of each of your characters appropriately to your character. Which is to say, is your character educated? Is she patient? Is she impatient? Does she have impulsive behavior? Is she thoughtful, modern, old-fashioned in her thinking? And that'll help you choose the words you use when she talks. If she's an old-fashioned person, she'll use old-fashioned allusions when she speaks, and her frame of mind will be old-fashioned, which in itself might be in conflict with the setting. And now we know that she might feel like a fish out of water. And you don't have to tell anybody any of that. It's right there in the dialogue and in the setting and in the world that you've created. So anyway, you know, I have to apologize. I'm listening to myself, which is a horrible thing for me to do. This is not intended to be professorial. This is me just yapping about stuff I was thinking about because Maddie made me do it. No, but thinking about it, the use of conflict is, this is just me and my approach. So forgive me for if I'm coming across with a tone that's like, do this or you're doing it wrong, because that's not the case at all. Hi, Wendell. There you are. You just came up on my screen. I didn't see you before. Okay. So my favorite pet peeve is every writer's conference, somebody will bring it up, the murky middle. Okay, the murky middle of your novel. Oh my God, I hate the murky middle. And here's my peeve. If your middle's murky, fix it. It's your fault. It shouldn't be murky. That's your second act. This is where, pardon my French, but this is where the shit goes down. There should be nothing murky about this. And this is your opportunity to let your conflict flag wave. Use that in your dialogue, use it in the kind of cars people drive. There's a place for it almost anywhere. And always reveal, reveal, reveal. There's really no point for it if it's not meant to be revelatory, in my opinion. I guess you could just have conflict for conflict's sake, but I've read that before, and to me, it grows very tiresome very early. So just remember that it's there to evoke a response, and it's there, the response is the revelation. And it's a bitchin' tool, pardon that expression as well, showing my age now. So anyway, the whole murky middle business, take advantage of, if you find yourself in the editing process spotting cul-de-sacs, great opportunity to fix it and great vehicles to be able to do it. And don't forget to make sure that your characters follow through. There can be a learning process. There can and should be change among some of them and growth, especially in a series where there's growth. And you don't, only a foolish and probably unlikable main character would make the same silly mistakes again and again and again and again. I mean, I would find that irritating. But do close the loop. When you open that conflict, do make sure and close that thing, because you put it there, and you put it there for a purpose. Let's see, we talked about those things. I took some notes, so I'm just talked about payoffs and responses. Then there is the third act, and here's that denouement and conclusion and all of that. Do be sure and keep notes of the conflicts that you've created, so that your story, your narrative all the way through is consistent as it relates to not only the big story, the A story, but also to all of those characters all through the list. And I don't know, I bet we all do this, but keep a list of your characters, who they are, and what it is that they do, because some of them are just walk-ons. But walk-ons shouldn't be walking on unless they have a purpose. So keep those breadcrumbs in front of you, so that when it is time for Act 3 and when it's time for the conclusion, you can organically bring it about and show the growth, show the resolution and the character building that you have so painstakingly worked on through the whole narrative. Which brings me now to, and I'm going to conclude with a couple of thoughts here. I've been watching, I bet everybody here has been watching the Hemingway PBS deal. If you haven't, do. Whether you like Hemingway or not, because it's really not about him so much as it is about, we writers share a lot of temperament. And he was a better writer. I've read a lot of his work, but I've not ever known much about the man. and as conflicted and I don't know, he's kind of a character that people have strong feelings about, but he was a very serious man where his writing was concerned. And he got up early and he worked until noon every day, because he never liked to lose that thread. And I loved the description of his style in the first episode. And it occurred to me how simple, how deceptively simple his style comes across. But it's the things that go unsaid between his characters, that creates the conflict in his stories. There is a lot of angst that people suffer through that the reader gets. And that, to me personally, that's a very hard thing. You have to be very careful in crafting that in order to get it across. And I'm so impressed because he does that by not saying things, by not saying what all of us as readers are thinking, come on, just tell her you love her. And it doesn't happen. And that conflict is the story. So even that is a thing. I will, this is my closing, and perhaps we can open it up. If there are some questions, we can open it up to some questions or dialogue. But going through this process, thinking about conflict and how I like to use it in the architecture of a story, it nailed down for me one of the primary things that I love about being a writer, and that is there's an inherent bargain in our craft. Ours is to bring the words. The reader brings everything else. Everything else. So we deliver what we want them to use as tools, and they're going to provide a whole bunch of stuff that we don't even necessarily know about. And for me, I try not to contain it too much, because I think a little free range thinking in my reader's mind, more is better for me. So I guess I came away with the thought that a book unread is a book unfinished. We need to share them, don't we? And when we don't have a reader, it feels like it really isn't, it hasn't been done yet. And that's my feeling. And I love to fall in love with my characters, good guys, bad guys, and otherwise, and to create opportunities for them to reveal themselves, often to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that for me.
That was great, Baron. I mean, it's really, you talk about creating a situation where what's unsaid is so important. I mean, just listening to the things that you said and then having to think about them and apply them to your own writing could take an hour. I mean, just the very concept that you don't use conflict for conflict's sake, the conflict has to be revelatory. And then you start saying, okay, you see writers who use conflict for conflict's sake, and you realize how shallow that is after you think about it. But unless you think about it, it's easy to do. So I appreciate that to begin with. That's just what I'm taking away from this. I mean, if you're looking to not only add interest, but depth to your writing, that's how you add depth to your writing. So thank you for that. That was just my thought. Okay, so we have a couple of comments here to start with. Mine was Sonic wallpaper. Oh my God. Okay, that may be the phrase that characterizes your entire presentation right there. Sonic wallpaper. That was great. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Barbara has the most important question. When will your next book be out?
Oh, bless you. Thank you for asking that. I have no idea.
There
No,
you go.
I've finished the third of the Ty Dawson series, and I'm very happy with it. It's all edited and all that. There was a small tragedy. No, what a horrible thing to say. What I meant was there was a tragedy in my small press that has been publishing me, and that is that Marty Shepard passed away late last year, and very unexpectedly cancer. For those of you who know Marty, I don't know if you do or don't. He's the founder. He and his wife are the founders of the Permanent Press, who have been very, very good to me. And so I am now looking for a new publisher to pick up the series. So I don't have that. My agent is thankfully working diligently at it. I'm sure it keeps her up all night long.
I mean, well,
Okay.
as well it should, Baron.
Let's just say I wish it did, but it probably doesn't. But anyway, believe me, you guys are going to be the first to know because I love you, and you guys are so good to me that thank you for letting me be here just to jawbone about this. And thanks for asking, Barbara. I appreciate it.
It was much more than that, Baron. So, okay, here we have a question from Debbie. Okay, Baron, do you present this small set piece through dialogue at the beginning or just viewed by author?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Either I've done both. What I have found it more challenging to do, and I'm trying to do more things that make me uncomfortable as a writer. So, which is, I don't know why I do. That's a dumb thing to do, really. But so I try to create now a small scene. Walk out the door, encounter somebody, or driving home and something happens, see something on TV, a scene that can be sort of, you can write it in a page or less, but it's a scene that exposes the character's inner self without having to say a thing. He doesn't have to say a thing. It's all in the actions. It's in what he either did or did not do that he should or shouldn't have done, that tells you everything you need to know for later. And where I find it most effective is in revealing that weakness that is going to be the critical weakness where right when your heroine could have dragged the person from the burning car, is afraid of fire and didn't. I mean, and now we know you don't have to tell anybody how she's going to feel about that, right? So I like to try to create some sort of a little foreshadowing scene, and just it's almost, to the reader's eye, it's almost invisible because you wonder why they do. What did that have to do with anything? Well, it's important later, and I love things that are important later. I love nested narratives. I like, who the heck's that, and what does that have to do with anything? Well, trust me, stick with me, because if there's a trust the reader bargain, you got to trust the writer too, right? So, and often we do that. Sometimes we stick with long pages of what the hell's happening here, but I really try to not do that. Not to say I don't, but it's fun to build scenes, I think.
Okay, all right, and then we're moving on to another question from Diana. I like dialogue that has a subtext that lays the groundwork for future conflict. How do we do that better?
Eavesdrop. I love just watching people. We all do. We all know it too. We eavesdrop on other people. It's been harder in 2020 because the only people you get to listen to are in your house. So,
which is creepy.
And they're going to recognize themselves right away. So be careful with that. But no, I think some of the funniest, best, weirdest junk I have ever written in terms of dialogue or scenes or anything have been things I actually saw and just I couldn't make it up.
Okay. And so let's see, we have Baron is leaning on his bar. So he is in professorial PJ. Behind is his sonic wallpaper, a hat, and a guitar, and a monkey. Okay. So, do you want to mention? It's early in the morning. You are in the bar. Would you like to talk about how much time you spend in the bar? The
Would I
writers'
like
bar.
to, or am I being forced to?
The writers' bar.
Well, in the right. Thank you for that. Wow.
You're welcome.
So shameless plug opportunity. That was really good. You teed that up nicely for me. Thank you, Maddie. For those who are not aware, it's been fun. The Authors on the Air Network, Pam Stack's thing, came and like Maddie, I believe you're a part of that deal. There are likely others, but she asked me to do a little thing that's a 45, 50-minute interview, one-on-one. We call it the Writer's Bar with Baron Bircher. It's on Facebook, so please jump over there and follow me. We've had some fun interviews with Craig Johnson, Sean Cosby, Bruce Coffin, our all mutual friend Matt Coyle. It's really been a lot of fun. Wendell, we need to talk about that. Maddie, we need to talk about that.
At the bar, we're there.
So anyway, it all takes place here, and the whole idea is I sip a cocktail, the guest sips a cocktail, and by the end of it, it's supposed to still make sense.
Yeah, there.
But we'll see. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
That's that conflict in the setting right there, Baron. We see that, right?
It's the tension we build into the whole situation.
That's right. And by the way, I don't know if anybody has read or how many people have read Sean Cosby, who Baron was talking about, just won the Los Angeles Book Prize.
Just last night, yeah.
Yeah, for mystery and thriller. So yeah, way to catch the stars, Baron.
Well, you know, he's a really sweet guy, and I met him at BoucherCon in Dallas, whenever that was. Seems like years ago now. But very sweet, giant teddy bear of a guy who you'd never want angry with you.
Right, with a wicked ear for dialogue and story. So if you haven't read Blacktop Wasteland, and then his new one is Razorblade Tears, I think.
Yeah, is there a better title than that you've heard recently than Razorblade Tears, really?
No.
I mean, that's up there with Late for the Sky.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, I read that he just got nominated for the Golden Dagger Award in Europe.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Yeah. So even though he lives in the South, we're claiming him here in the East Coast. Well, all right. So moving on. Okay, this is Debbie. How do you define yourself as first-person main character? Through others' dialogue about possible negative opinion? Okay, these are different questions. Okay, how do you define yourself as first-person main character? That's the first question. And then through others' dialogue about possible negative opinion about the main character, or self-reflection, which shows conflict to event, or not self-reflection in a mirror, right? Yeah, no mirrors, but go ahead.
Right. Wow.
That's a
gee whiz, that's
Debbie.
A lot. So let's try to unpack that a piece at a time. And if I forget to, I should have been writing that down. I like to have, my main characters tend to have a particular area of expertise that they can lean on so that they're good at something. They're better at something than most people. But our friend Chris Knopf, and if you haven't read him, he's a really fun author to read as well, Chris Knopf. Chris calls it your protagonist superpower. But I like to give my protagonist one superpower that he's just kind of better than most people at. Then what happens is his or her personality becomes kind of secondary. They can be quirky, they can be fussy, they can be funny, they can be a lot of things, but they kind of have to have at least one redeeming characteristic to not only propel the story, otherwise it's utterly unbelievable, unless the story is about a bumbling idiot that just mistakenly solves something, which can be amusing. I don't do that, and I don't know how, but I like to build that in. I like to have a character with personal flaws that he is aware of and personal flaws that he is unaware of. Because those are two different things, and you get to reveal those through dialogue and relationship, like we were talking about with the setting. There's a lot of interesting ways where you can have the setting remind your protagonist that they are out of step with what the rest of the community is doing, which kind of makes for some interesting friction sometimes. Or they're completely in step, and whoever the interloper is completely out of step, and that's another interesting conundrum that you can unravel. In terms of self-reflection, that's hard. I have found that very difficult to do in any meaningful way, and I've abandoned it in favor of having people smack my character around, and he has to learn that way, because it's undramatic to do that proverbial looking in the mirror, gee whiz, wow, what a bummer you are as a guy, and you got to go figure it out. Okay, yawn. You got to have somebody sort of remind you that you're a big fat failure, even though you thought you weren't. And it's the big fall, it's the big stumble that I like to use for my characters, for my main protagonist to learn about himself or herself.
Baron, I have a question. So this is to follow up on Debbie's question. Is there a difference in, or what is the difference between creating conflict if you're writing in first person versus, let's say, close third or another point of view? Do you think one's harder more difficult than the other, or?
I spend more time writing first person, but there's a lot of elbow room available to you when you write third person. So I like them both because they serve a purpose. And I've been spanked for using both in the same book, which you're not supposed to do. And too bad. Do it anyway. For me, it's a tool like any other tool in the writer's toolbox. And I like to use it when your protagonist has no idea, has no reason to know what's going on elsewhere in the world, but he's about to. So you got to let the reader know what's going on and show that, again, though, careful to show the conflict and show what's happening to that character so that you feel the pain. If you just tell them about it, you really don't. Again, I keep saying you, like, for me, when I read, I like it when I say, oh, wow, that person's mean, rather than tell somebody that that's a mean guy. It's just better. It's just more evil when you arrive at that conclusion as a reader. So no, it is not harder for me, one versus the other, but I do have a lot more practice doing it in first person.
Okay. Glenda, we'll get to your question. I'm not even sure the context of that. When we get through this, we'll go back to that. Okay, so Larry asks, how do you develop conflicts for a successful detective like Mike Travis?
Mike Travis is a guy who tends to create conflicts of his own that he doesn't need to, by being, he's a little brusque. He has very difficult time being a empathetic soul where his loved ones are concerned. He's sort of blind to the people that are closest to him. And that's his Achilles heel. He's got people that keep wanting to help him and love him and support him. And when he's focused on solving the problem in front of him, those people are almost invisible. And I want my readers to feel their pain, that why can't I get to this guy? And he makes some of his own trouble because of it. And it's, he frustrates me sometimes, but I like to let him do it.
Yeah, how much better for a reader to relate to somebody who creates their own problems?
Well, you read those stories, for example, like I always go back to this. What were the two books? There was Gone Girl, oh, and then Girl on a Train. There were the two girl books that kind of came out that same year, right? And both of them were that unreliable narrator, for one, which I always love. And number two, they created more of their own trouble and said, oh my God, stop that. If you just stop that, a lot of your problems would go away, but they can't help themselves. And it draws you to them in this weird kind of way. I think that's why those books worked. I don't know. There's probably a lot of other things that made them work too.
All right. Okay. So Larry, this question gave me a headache, but we'll figure it out. Okay.
All right. I got my pen ready.
You ready? Is a character avoiding a conflict actually a conflict?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Oh, you bet.
So,
yeah, I think the absence of I said something weird to my brother the other day. I was whining about being under stress. Like nobody has that problem, right? So he says, you got to remember, Baron, this is my older brother. So I always go to him for advice. He says, remember, Baron, stress is good for you. If you had no stress in your life, what would that be like? I thought, okay, yeah, I didn't want to hear that right now, but thank you. It's true.
Yeah, for boring, no drama. So I have a question too. So you mentioned using conflict for foreshadowing, as a foreshadowing tool, and the first meteor was using conflict to reveal character and story. And then the second meteor was using it for foreshadowing. So can you talk a little bit more about how you do that as a writer, or how we can do that as writers, better do that?
What was your first example?
About how you use conflict as a foreshadowing tool. How you write conflict to foreshadow events or issues going forward.
They are, let's see, I probably spend a little more time than necessary or than is healthy examining my own behavior. And I think, wow, I really missed an opportunity to be a nice guy just then. Or it's very, very rare where I go, well done, good job, Baron, nice going. Because it's a bummer, but in day-to-day life, I watch just different opportunities to do teeny tiny things. And in my actual real life, I'm trying to do more nice things in teeny tiny ways. But those are the things that you use as foreshadowing. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be a meteor. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be somebody drops they're sitting at a bus bench and drops their cane and doesn't know it. And you know that they can't stand back up without the use of the cane. You're going to go, just take a second and hand it to them, or you're going to go, oh, bummer, and keep walking. Well, small things, little teeny tiny things tell you they speak volumes about character and about your characters, and it doesn't take a lot. And I think that's why I associated that earlier on with the trust your reader thing. Because if you trust your reader, you can give them teeny tiny bird seeds. They get it. We get it, right? We read all the time. And when somebody hands you one of those things, you have to assume it's on the page and it didn't get blue penned, because it needs to be there. So little, they can be teeny tiny little things. And those are the ones that are the best. What I like best, and they're a little harder to find, are the poignant ones. The ones that kind of make you catch your breath a little bit and go, oh, man, ah. And your heroine can become 10 times the heroine by doing that one tiny little service that is so kind that it tells you everything you need to know about her heart.
Okay, so, and I know a lot of these things probably come naturally to you at this point, but for all of us who maybe that doesn't come naturally to right away, when you're talking about writing these conflicts, do you outline them? What is your process for putting these conflicts into your story? And at what point do they enter your story or your manuscript?
I'm an outliner. I am not a pantser. I tried that one time, no fun. So I'm an outliner.
We're back to the pants thing again. All right, but go on.
No, that's all I'm going to say about pants. So, no, I outline, and I outline in kind of a free-form way. It's more of a Christmas tree, and then I like to put the words in as decorations, right? So the conflicts and the character development are embellishments to the story. And when I put a character in, I always ask myself, what's this character? Why are they here? And why are they saying anything? And if I'm giving them dialogue, what's the point? So I try to be careful with that, I guess. I'm not sure I just answered your question though.
No, you did. I mean, I think the part about the outlining answered my question. I mean, okay. This is planned. This is intentional, not coincidental that's happening. And
yeah, but as we who outline know that we're trying to get from step B to step C, but I can't just put you there. I need to guide you there. I need to take you there. And I need to take you there with a story. And inherent in that story, the story can be very short. It could be a paragraph. It could be 3 sentences long. But I need to get you from B to C. And in so doing, I have the opportunity to give you all kinds of information that I want you to have in the process. So that's where I like to drop those little nuggets. And that's where I like to create those little scenes, because they can do both. And I like to view them as, all of us are exposed to a lot of visual stimuli now. So we watch all of these, there's nothing better than binging a show now. And it has begun to irritate me in this age of post-COVID, where I have to wait till next week. I'm supposed to remember all this junk till next Tuesday? Oh my God. I just want to watch all 8 of them right now, that's a book. Binging a show is a book. So now we have this corollary that we get to see as authors. Oh, that's how we all want our work to look like. And that's how we all want it consumed. Sit down, read the book, finish it, and go, wow, right?
I'm with you. Whenever I hear that music. Yeah.
So it's scenes, you know what I mean? That's how I try to think of it, is how do I get the person from here to here? Well, you got to do it with a scene, and you can do it with a jump cut too. You could just go, boom. I'm all of a sudden now I'm in Thailand and it's a whole different year. All right. Your reader will go with you. You got to deliver, but they'll go with you. They'll go with you wherever you take them. But you have to deliver.
As long as your conflict is there, right?
Yes, and as long as the delivery is there, you always have to deliver. Okay. And it doesn't have to be a punch, and it doesn't have to be an explosion. You just have to deliver something.
Okay. All right. So Karen has a question for you, Baron, also. How do you get to know your characters thoroughly? You have techniques or tricks that you use, or is it more organic? And do you know the characters well before you start writing or get to know them during the process?
What a fun question. Wow. I'm thinking about Mike Travis, the first guy, my first series character, and I thought I knew him, and he revealed himself to me as being somebody slightly different, not a lot different, but slightly different, and had vulnerabilities that I was unaware of. And they make him more interesting, and they made him more human. There is more Mike Travis coming too, by the way. There's another Mike Travis series book after the Tide book. Thank you, Barb.
Great.
But I can't let him go. I can't let him go because now I know him really well. I thought he was going to be kind of 3 books and that would be the end of it. But I keep liking to revisit him and his world, because his world has sort of got a lot of concentric rings of characters that cross over. And I think I mentioned it last time you and I spoke, Maddie, that if you really look carefully at all the books I've written, they all relate to one another. I always leave a character that overlaps with another story. So one day when the body of work is long enough to be meaningful, I'd like to put out a list of, if you want to read it chronologically rather than the way they came out, that it would be a different kind of a trip.
Interesting. That along with your playlists.
And the playlist to go with. And
are good ancillaries.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tanya has a question too. Personality can be a cause of conflict. How do you handle a series with a protagonist with a personality flaw? What's the resolution? What's the growth? Is not fixing something a resolution?
I think because we are all human and because we all have character flaws, to create a character that doesn't have them reads flat to me. The guy, I'm trying to think of somebody, it's not necessarily 007, but I was just talking to my son-in-law the other day about, he said, I just read a 007 book and it was kind of weird. They're not like the movies. No, they're really not like the movies. And he is a little, first of all, very anachronistic to today in so many ways. But he's a little too good at everything. And the new version, theatrically, with Daniel Craig, he's the guy that brought some cracks to the veneer. But the early Bond, he never really sweated much. You know, I got this. It's fine. I got kind of a tool that can. It's fine. We'll defeat the bad guys. Everything will be well. Well, that doesn't, to me, read particularly interestingly, especially in a series. If this guy just always has the answers, I don't know. Raise your hand if you have a friend that always knows the answer to everything. Yeah, and that sucks. They're not really my friend because they don't really have the answers, and it's as boring on a page as it is elsewhere. So I like flaws, and I like characters to have flaws. They may be frustrating, they may learn about them, but what's human about it is, even sometimes when we learn about our own personal flaws, we don't fix them.
So Tanya, I have to tell you, Tanya said her husband told her to raise her hand when you asked that question. So that was talk about conflict. Thank you for that, Tanya. And the follow-up to her question, though, was also very good. Is what's the resolution to, you were talking about having to fix conflicts and resolve conflicts. What's the resolution to having a character who has a serious personality flaw, or do you have to resolve that?
Well, it's up to you. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It depends how many flaws they have. It depends on why they have them, because remember, they are our invention, and they can do anything we want them to do. Matt Coyle recently did his book, and he did. I called him on the phone because when I read his, I think, book before last. Spoiler alert. Can I do that?
Yeah, because it's on the jacket, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you can.
Main character goes blind out of the blue, kind of out of the blue. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow, buddy, you painted yourself into an interesting corner, because now he has to do all kinds of things that he doesn't know how to do. He's a flawed guy to begin with. His character's got all kinds of personal problems to start with. Now he's got this. And now he can't rely on his eyesight to solve problems, or even as a tool to solve problems. It kind of makes him crankier and harder to sort of relate to. But I dug it. I loved what he did. I thought it was brave as hell. I thought he delivered totally on it. And to paint yourself into that kind of a position, knowing that Matt doesn't know what it's like to be blind either. So he had to go research that for a whole book, actually, maybe more than one book. I'm not sure how that resolves, but do you have to resolve it? No, not necessarily. But I think perfect characters are boring and they don't exist in real life. So one must be careful with how you craft them and the flaws you want to give them and why. And, you know, obviously the alcoholic PI has been played out. I think that played out in the late 50s and we're still doing it. But, you know, there are other tropes. There are other flaws humans can endure.
I think that's true. And I think those character flaws and how they interact with what goes on around them, the friction is the conflict that everybody gets to use. So
yeah, and again, going back to Matt, by the way, now he owes me money.
Yeah, I'm writing that down. And Wendell, you can write that down too.
Let him, remind him. I just sold a bunch of books for him today. He delivered. He really delivered on it. He delivered on the promise. And at first, when I saw him do that at the beginning of that book, I thought, oh man.
Talk about conflict.
Oh, big time. And it's the tension that exists. It's the through line in that whole book that has nothing to do with the plot. And what a beautiful example of conflict. Yeah. It's just a day-to-day bumping into walls, literally bumping into walls, tripping over his dog. Silly stuff that you don't think of that would happen if it happened to you. Okay.
Well, we are running out of time. I think we have time for one more question. Let me just, before I do that, a couple more quick things. Love the Christmas tree idea. Everybody's saying thank you for doing such a great job. And he says, yeah, Matt Coyle did a great job with that. That's true. Okay, so one final question. You mentioned that characters are inventions. Have you ever tried to make your character do something that he or she didn't want to do, or that was inauthentic to their personality? Perhaps yes. a conflict with other characters?
Yes, and I did it early on. I did it, I think, in my second or third book. And my editor busted me on it and said, this is, why is Mike Travis doing that? I said, well, because of this. Why would he do that? He's never done that before. Why would he do it now? And if you want him to do it now, you should plant those bird seeds before this. And that's where the breadcrumbs and the bird seeds come in. If you want somebody to do something surprising, you have to make sure that there's an element and some sort of facet of their personality that would allow you to believe, yeah, that's possible. And I came out of the blue with something because I'm the guy that did the cul-de-sac deal. And I created a shiny object just to, oh, look at the bird. And it didn't work. It felt inorganic and yuck. Thank God. That was a big learning experience for me. And that's what a good editor will do for you. It's what a good beta reader will do for you. One other thing that no one's unsolicited opinion here about beta readers. To the extent that we are not ultra careful to begin with, and we are, because these are we spend months and months and months crafting these things. And when you finally entrust that finished product to someone, you're really, that's far more trust than your reader may understand that you are giving them, I think. It's almost an emotional experience, that first thing. And one must be careful to whom you entrust that, because what we sometimes forget is you can't unhear things. And when I have someone read my work, and when they, I only give it to people who I know will be mindful that I'm listening and that it'll stick. So don't say arbitrary things to me, because I can't unhear them. Don't say mean things, because I can't unhear them. So be careful with your baby when you hand them off to your first babysitter, because it matters what you hear back. And not everything you hear is true.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. I think that's a good note to end today. Before we go live, is not everything is true. So we're writers, we can do what we want. We can make people have fights, all the conflict in our world, we can put on the page. And if you don't have conflict in your world, you can put it on the page. We can, we have lots of tools available to keep writing and to keep everybody reading. So thank you, Baron, for sharing. We appreciate it. Everybody, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all very much. This has been a blast, as always.